I knew running away wouldn't fix anything, but I never expected him to be waiting. The small town felt almost unbearably quiet that summer, the kind of quiet that presses against your chest and makes every little sound, every laugh drifting from an open window, every car door slamming in the distance, even the soft rustle of leaves in the wind, feel impossibly sharp, impossible to ignore. It wasn't a peaceful quiet. No. It was the kind of quiet that makes you hyper-aware of your own breathing, the kind that follows you like a shadow, settling on your shoulders until you begin to wonder if you truly belong here at all. It was the kind of silence that felt like it knew you were an outsider. Knew you were temporary. Knew you were running. Every step I took along the cracked sidewalk seemed louder than it needed to be, each footfall echoing against the faded clapboard houses lined in neat, judgmental rows across the street. Houses painted in tired colors, pale yellows chipped to reveal gray wood, blues that had long surrendered to sun and rain, stood like quiet sentinels, watching me with shuttered windows and sagging porches. Rusted iron gates leaned slightly off their hinges, creaking faintly when the wind touched them, as if whispering secrets about the people who lived behind them. It felt like the whole town was breathing in sync, and I was inhaling too late, exhaling too early, forever out of rhythm with everything around me. The air itself carried a heaviness too thick to ignore. It smelled of old pine, sun-warmed metal, and the faint sweetness of wildflowers growing stubbornly through cracks in the pavement. Somewhere in the distance, a screen door slapped shut, the tired spring squealing. A dog barked. A child laughed. And each sound, instead of comforting me, seemed to magnify the silence that followed. I wanted to disappear into that stillness. Melt into the scenery. Become part of the background noise, a ghost drifting through a place where no one would ask who I was or why I had come here alone. I had left the city behind, but not because I hated it. If anything, I loved it too much. I loved the chaos, the lights, the endless buzz of life thrumming through the streets at every hour of the day. But somewhere along the way, the noise had stopped being thrilling and had become suffocating. The traffic, the crowds, the neon signs that blinked non-stop, they all felt like reminders of who I used to be and who I had failed to become. The city was full of people who knew my name. People who knew my choices. People who saw every version of me that I didn't want to be anymore. That city held my heartbreaks like trophies, displayed in places I couldn't avoid. Every street corner seemed to whisper something I was trying to forget, a conversation I cut short, a friendship I ruined, a promise I broke. The apartment I left behind still held echoes of arguments and tears, of laughter that died too quickly, of memories that clung like fingerprints on glass no matter how much I tried to wipe them away. And love. Love had been the loudest part of it all. I had loved someone with the kind of reckless, naive belief that things always work out if you care enough. I had loved with open hands and a hopeful heart, only to watch it fall apart piece by piece until there was nothing left to save. The heartbreak had been public, messy, humiliating. The kind of heartbreak strangers witnessed from across the street and friends whispered about behind my back, trying not to let me hear them say I should have known better. And maybe I should have. Maybe I should have seen the signs sooner, the way his voice changed when he said my name, the way he pulled away before bed, the way his eyes stopped softening when he looked at me. But love blinds you, and when the truth finally hits, it doesn't just hurt, it destroys. Expectations had followed me everywhere. Expectations to be strong. To be healed. To move on quickly and gracefully. To be the version of myself everyone liked, the dependable friend, the dutiful daughter, the girl who didn't make mistakes big enough to break her own life apart. But I had made mistakes. Mistakes I couldn't undo. Mistakes that sat heavy in my chest every time I opened my eyes in the morning. So I left. I packed up what little of myself I had the courage to carry, and I drove until the city lights faded behind me like a dying constellation. I drove until the roads narrowed, until the GPS signal flickered and disappeared, until all that remained in front of me were long stretches of empty space and quiet towns that didn't know me. This town, this small, sun-washed place with peeling paint and slow afternoons, was supposed to be my refuge. A place where I could breathe without feeling the weight of every expectation pressing down on my lungs. A place where no one whispered about me, where no one recognized my face or the sadness behind my eyes. I wanted anonymity. I wanted to be nameless, invisible, almost weightless. I wanted to walk into a grocery store and not see pity reflected back at me from familiar eyes. I wanted to sit at a diner booth and not have anyone ask if I was doing okay. I wanted a life where the only story people knew about me was the one I chose to give them. I wanted air, real air, not the recycled, suffocating breath of a life that no longer fit me. And here, in this tiny, quiet town, surrounded by streets that seemed frozen in time and houses that carried a century of stories beneath their paint, I thought I had finally found it. A place where I could hide. A place where I could heal. A place where I could finally start over without looking over my shoulder. But I didn't know then, couldn't have known, that the quiet I was trying to escape into would only lead me somewhere louder. Somewhere I didn't expect. Someone I didn't expect. Someone who would make every heartbeat louder, every breath sharper, every moment feel like it was leading me towards something I wasn't ready for. Someone I wasn't prepared to meet. Someone the universe had been quietly pushing me toward long before I ever decided to run. And everything changed the moment I saw him. The small town had its own rhythm, slow, steady, almost hesitant, like it knew it was being watched and didn't want to reveal too much at once. By the time the second week rolled in, I began to sense things I hadn't noticed before. The soft whistle of the wind when it passed through the tall grass behind the houses. The way the old church bell chimed at odd intervals, even when there wasn't a service. The distant rumble of trains passing tracks hidden behind the ridge. I could feel the town settling into me in tiny, delicate ways, even though I kept resisting it, insisting to myself that I wouldn't stay long enough to belong. People in small towns move differently, they linger more, smile longer, ask questions even when you try to give short answers. At the little bakery on Maple Street, the older woman behind the counter always called me sweetheart, even though she didn't know my name. At the grocery store, Mr. Hart, who wore the same brown suspenders every single day, kept giving me seasonal fruit for free because city folks never eat right. It was odd. Uncomfortable at times. But oddly comforting, too. Still, no amount of local kindness could erase the reasons I had come here. Every night, when I lay in the small rented room above the antique shop, the silence pressed in thicker than before, an uninterrupted stillness that left too much space for my thoughts. That's when my past would creep back in, whispering reminders of everything I had run from. The mistakes. The betrayals. The nights I couldn't look myself in the mirror. Some wounds don't heal just because you change your scenery. And in the city, it had felt like the walls were closing in. I remembered the night I decided to leave. Standing by my apartment window, watching headlights stretch across the pavement below like streaks of white fire. I had been trembling, not from cold, but from the weight of exhaustion. Emotional exhaustion. The kind people pretend doesn't count as real. The kind that keeps you awake even when your body begs for sleep. There had been a text message on my phone from someone who used to know me better than anyone else. Just one sentence. One line that shattered me. We need to talk. Those 4 words dragged me back to every heartbreak I thought I had survived, to every moment I had tried to hold together while falling apart inside. I remember setting the phone down and realizing, truly realizing, I had nothing left in me to fight anymore. So I ran. I didn't pack neatly. I didn't plan. I shoved clothes into a duffel bag, grabbed the half-used gas card from my drawer, and left the key on my kitchen table. The city lights blurred in my rearview mirror as I drove away, the early morning fog swallowing the skyline behind me. Hours later, when the road signs thinned and the air smelled cleaner and softer, I found myself here. In this small town. A place I didn't choose so much as stumble into. And yet, even as the days passed, even as the quiet crept into my bones, there was still an ache inside me. A restless whisper that reminded me I wasn't healed. I wasn't whole. Not yet. I walked everywhere because walking made me feel grounded. I traced the same streets over and over, past the pale blue house with chipped shutters, past the brick post office with its broken flagpole, past the diner where the neon sign buzzed like a tired heartbeat. The routine settled over me like a thin blanket. Not warm, not cold, just there. But the quiet didn't always comfort me. Sometimes it exposed me. In the city, the noise had drowned out everything, my thoughts, my doubts, the echoes of heartbreak. Here, there was nothing to hide behind. No honking cars. No drunken laughter. No crowded sidewalks. Just me. And the silence. And the truth I kept trying to outrun. I had wanted anonymity. I had wanted peace. A place where no one knew my failures or the way I had broken under pressure. But wanting something doesn't erase the fear that comes with it. I feared being seen, really seen. Not as the person I pretended to be in the city, but the person I had become after everything fell apart. A fragile version of myself. A version filled with cracks I didn't know how to fix. Some nights, I stood on the little balcony outside my rented room, hands resting on the chipped wooden railing, staring out at the shadows stretching across the street. I'd listen to the distant chirp of crickets, the occasional bark of a neighborhood dog, the soft hum of streetlights flickering. And in those moments, I'd wonder if maybe running away wasn't the solution I wanted it to be. Maybe isolation wasn't saving me. Maybe it was just exposing how lonely I truly was. Small towns have a way of peeling back layers you didn't even know you had, revealing parts of yourself you've buried beneath years of noise and motion. Here, without distractions, I could feel every emotion more sharply. The regret. The guilt. The yearning for something I couldn't name yet. Sometimes I found myself wandering past the river at dusk. The water shimmered gold when the sun dipped low, casting a soft glow across the rippling surface. I'd sit on the worn wooden bench overlooking the water and breathe, really breathe, for the first time in years. But even as I tried to settle into this new rhythm, even as I tried to convince myself that solitude was what I needed, something inside me buzzed with a different kind of anticipation. A shift. A pull. As if the universe was quietly whispering that change was coming. That someone was coming. Someone who would disrupt the stillness I had built around myself. Someone who would break through the quiet I had wrapped myself in like armor. Someone who would turn my escape into something I never expected. And I didn't know it then, not yet, but I was about to meet the one person this town should have warned me about. The one person who would make the silence feel electric. The one person who would turn everything I thought I wanted upside down. The one person I was never supposed to find. But fate doesn't care about what we're ready for. It only cares about what we need. And the moment I saw him, everything shifted. Everything. Something about that look made me stop mid-step, frozen as if the world itself had decided to hold its breath. It wasn't a friendly glance. It wasn't curiosity, or even the polite recognition of a stranger passing on the street. No. It was something far deeper, something almost frightening in its intensity. There was a knowledge in his eyes, like he could see straight through me, into the pieces of my life I had tried to leave behind, the mistakes I had tried to bury, the heartbreaks I had hoped no one would ever notice. And yet, somehow, instead of judging me, he understood. He held that understanding without pity, without condescension, without expectation. He simply saw me, and in seeing, he made me feel recognized, whole, even in my shattered state. The strangest thing happened. I wanted to turn away, to pretend I hadn't noticed him at all, to let the moment pass like every other fleeting encounter in my new life. My suitcase felt suddenly heavy in my hand, every step forward a battle against the magnetism of his gaze. My feet refused to move, locked in place by some invisible tether, drawn toward him in a way that made no sense. My chest tightened. My pulse skipped. My thoughts scattered, incoherent, like the fragments of a dream I couldn't piece together. I told myself it was a mistake. That I shouldn't even be thinking about him. That I had come here to escape life, escape heartbreak, escape the chaos that had defined the past year of my existence. I had promised myself that this town, with its quiet streets and slow afternoons, was for healing, for recovery, for learning to breathe again without the crushing weight of the past pressing on my ribs. But even as I repeated those mantras in my head, I could feel my body betraying me. My stomach flipped. My hands tingled. My heart, stubborn and reckless, began to race in a way I hadn't felt in years, not since the city, not since the love that had left me hollow and raw. He smiled. It was subtle, almost imperceptible at first, but it carried weight, warmth and intent, and something else I couldn't place. It was like a small invitation, a secret only I was allowed to understand, a whisper in the chaos of my own thoughts telling me I wasn't as invisible as I had believed. That smile reached his eyes, lighting them from within, and for the briefest second, I felt like the world had narrowed, collapsing into a single point where only he and I existed. Everything else, the hum of the street, the distant bark of a dog, the faint creak of a rusty gate, faded into nothing. I forced myself to continue walking, quicker this time, dragging my suitcase across the uneven pavement, each scrape of the wheels against the cracks in the sidewalk echoing like a warning in my mind. I breathed in shallow, trembling breaths, trying to convince myself I was imagining things, that he was just a man, another face in a town full of faces, someone I didn't need to notice, someone whose existence didn't have to disrupt the fragile equilibrium I was attempting to create in this quiet life. And yet, even as I walked faster, even as I willed my thoughts away from him, I couldn't stop thinking about him. I couldn't unsee the way the sunlight caught the edges of his hair, fiery and bright against the muted tones of the street. I couldn't stop remembering the way his gaze had lingered on me, not judgmental, not critical, just seeing. The kind of seeing that both excites and terrifies. I realized, with a sinking sense of inevitability, that I didn't even know his name. I didn't know anything about him, where he worked, what he did, whether he had friends, whether he carried his own scars like I carried mine. And yet, that ignorance made the pull between us stronger, more magnetic, as if the universe had decided I wasn't allowed to leave without confronting him in some way. I could feel my own heart protesting against the caution I had spent so many months trying to cultivate. My mind screamed at me to ignore it, to walk faster, to focus on the path ahead, on the river I had promised myself I'd reach by sunset, on the rented room that had become my sanctuary. But my instincts, raw and unbidden, refused to listen. My body yearned toward him in ways I hadn't anticipated, in ways that frightened me more than anything I had felt in the city. I remembered every lesson I had forced myself to learn, to move quietly through life, to keep my distance, to protect myself from the unpredictability of people. And yet, every instinct was useless here, defeated by something I didn't yet understand. I could hear the faint scrape of his shoe against the pavement as he stepped forward, small and deliberate. I didn't dare look up. My fingers tightened around the suitcase handle, knuckles white. My breath came in uneven bursts, caught somewhere between fear and anticipation. My mind ran through every possible scenario in which I could escape this moment without drawing attention to myself. None of them felt possible. None of them mattered. "Hey," he said, low, just audible enough to float through the thick tension in the air. I almost stumbled. The sound of his voice made my chest constrict in a way that hurt deliciously, like a simultaneous reminder of every heartbreak I had survived and every joy I had denied myself. It was calm, but it carried weight. Intent. Recognition. Not a question, not a casual greeting, but a statement, "I see you." I wanted to tell him to leave me alone. I wanted to insist that this was temporary, that I was just passing through, that he didn't matter. But my voice caught in my throat. My resolve faltered. My heart betrayed me before my words ever could. He smiled again, a fraction broader this time, and it was enough. Enough to make the air feel charged, to make every step I had taken in silence feel like it had been leading me here. I felt a strange, thrilling vulnerability bloom in my chest. I wanted to turn away, to keep walking, to reclaim the escape I had fought so hard to find, but my body would not comply. My feet felt rooted, my heart anchored in place. Something about him, the way he stood, the way he held himself, the quiet confidence that didn't need to announce itself, made it impossible to imagine ever leaving without looking back. I continued forward, dragging my suitcase with a deliberate force now, trying to convince myself that I was still in control. I tried to repeat the mantra, "This is a town for healing. You're safe here. He's just a man. You don't need him." But even as I said it, even as my lips moved without conviction, my mind betrayed me. My thoughts returned to that smile. To the gaze that seemed to see me fully, without judgment, without expectation. To the inexplicable pull that made it impossible to focus on anything else. I didn't even know his name. I didn't know his story. I didn't know if he was good, or if he was kind, or if he would disappear as suddenly as he had appeared. And yet, in that moment, every fiber of me wanted to know. Wanted to chase it. Wanted to surrender to it. I realized then, with a mixture of awe and terror, that this was no ordinary glance. This was the start of something I hadn't anticipated. Something that would change the quiet of my small-town refuge into a heartbeat I could not ignore. Something that would follow me, echo in my chest, and make every quiet moment feel impossibly loud. And as I kept walking, faster now, suitcase scraping against the sidewalk, lungs burning with shallow breaths, I knew, somehow, that the pull wasn't going to let me go. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever. The days that followed were a strange blur, as if the world itself had pressed fast forward and left me stumbling through a sequence I couldn't quite catch up to. Each morning I woke to the soft golden light spilling through the thin curtains of my little rented room, and for a moment, I thought maybe the day would be quiet, uneventful, ordinary. But then I would step outside, and there he would be. Somewhere. Always somewhere. The town, which I had thought would shield me, had somehow conspired to make him appear wherever I went. I found myself drifting to the library first, as though hiding among dusty shelves and yellowed pages could shield me from the chaos of this attraction that had claimed me without permission. The library smelled faintly of old paper and polished wood, with sunlight slanting through tall windows, dust motes dancing lazily in the air. It was supposed to be a sanctuary, a place to lose myself in stories instead of my own thoughts. But it was also where I kept running into him. He would be there, always in the same corner near the poetry section, pretending to read a book he clearly hadn't opened in weeks. Yet somehow, he always managed to glance at me, just enough to catch my attention without seeming obvious. It was subtle, a slight shift of his head, a pause in turning a page, the smallest flicker of his gaze toward me. And each time, my chest clenched, my stomach lurched, and I felt a quiet thrill of panic and longing at once. The world seemed to tilt slightly off its axis whenever I saw him, as if gravity had decided to play favorites and left me unsteady in its orbit. I would look away, forcing my eyes to the spines of books I didn't want to read, pretending to study pages filled with words I didn't care about. But even as I tried to focus, I would catch the small smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth, just for a fleeting second, as if he knew exactly what he was doing. He was aware. I was aware. And the tension between us grew silently, invisibly, electric as a live wire straining against insulation. It didn't need words. Words would only ruin the delicate current that hummed in the air whenever we were near each other. I hated how much I thought about him. Hated it, and needed it all at once. Every time he appeared in my periphery, every casual encounter, I felt like a moth drawn to a flame I had promised myself I wouldn't approach. I would see him walking past the park, golden sunlight catching the edges of his hair, making it glow like copper in the late afternoon. Or leaning against the railing outside the grocery store, phone in hand, pretending to scroll, while every instinct told me he was watching me. The way he looked, calm, controlled, yet teasing, made my chest tighten painfully and my stomach twist in ways I hadn't experienced in months, maybe years. It was maddening. It was ridiculous. I had come here to escape everything, the city, my heartbreak, the memories that clawed at my chest, the version of myself I wanted to leave behind. And yet, here he was, everywhere I turned, making me feel things I had buried, things I had promised myself I would never feel again. My heartbeat would accelerate, a subtle thrum that pulsed through my body and made ordinary moments feel monumental. Every time he smiled, the world seemed to hold its breath. Every time our eyes met, I felt a current pass between us, fragile and dangerous, and I had no choice but to feel it. I tried to focus on other things, anything to reclaim the sense of control I had come here seeking. I unpacked boxes in my tiny apartment, lining my shelves with books, arranging little trinkets that made the space feel like mine. I wandered through the quiet streets, taking in the faded colors of clapboard houses, the uneven sidewalks, the subtle fragrance of honeysuckle that drifted from backyard fences. I tried to lose myself in the routine of it all, pretending, over and over again, that this little town was exactly what I had been looking for. But his presence was like a shadow that clung to me. It moved with me. It whispered possibility in the spaces I had tried to make safe. I could feel him lingering in the edges of my vision even when he wasn't there, a phantom of expectation and longing that refused to leave me alone. And then there were the nights. The quiet, almost sacred nights when the town seemed to hold its breath, when only the faint whistle of the distant train or the low hum of cicadas dared to pierce the darkness. Those nights were the worst, because in the stillness, my mind would replay every moment I had seen him during the day. I would lie in my bed, staring at the cracked plaster of the ceiling, tracing the contours of memories that shouldn't have mattered so much, and yet consumed me entirely. I remembered how his eyes had lingered too long once, on a book I had absent-mindedly picked up. The way he handed it to me, fingers brushing mine for the barest fraction of a second, sending a shockwave of awareness through me. I remembered the sunlight catching the curve of his smile as I passed the grocery store, a smile that felt private, intimate, as though it were meant for me alone in a world that had long since stopped noticing me. Every small detail, the angle of his head, the lift of his brow, the subtle shift in his stance when I entered the same room, etched itself into my memory, refusing to fade. Even lying in the dark, I could feel him there. A phantom limb of longing that ached with impossible intensity. I would pull the sheets tighter around me, try to convince myself to sleep, to forget, to turn off the memory of him, but it was useless. The town had promised me quiet, sanctuary, peace, and instead, it had introduced me to something louder, more insistent, more dangerous than I had anticipated. I hated that I craved it. I hated that I wanted him near, wanted to see his smirk, wanted to feel the pull of his gaze. But I couldn't resist. Every encounter, every accidental brush, every fleeting look became a thread tying me to him, weaving a tapestry of desire and curiosity and danger I didn't have the courage to untangle. And as the weeks blurred together, as sunlight stretched across the streets in lazy golden arcs and shadows grew long and thin in the afternoons, I began to realize something terrifying. He had become the center of my world in a place I had thought would save me from everything. He had turned my carefully constructed sanctuary into something electric, alive, urgent. And no matter how much I tried to escape it, no matter how hard I tried to focus on anything else, he remained, quietly, insistently, impossibly. I didn't even know his name yet. I didn't know his story. I didn't know if he belonged here, if he would stay, if he had secrets of his own he was hiding. And yet, that uncertainty only made the pull stronger. Like gravity, like the tide, it refused to release me. I was caught, completely and entirely, in a silent orbit around him, unable to break free and unwilling to try. I didn't know then what would happen next. I only knew that in this small, quiet town, where I had come to hide and heal, I had found something that refused to be ignored. Something I couldn't run from. Something that would change the course of my days, my nights, my very heart, whether I was ready or not. And I was not ready. I caught myself wondering things I shouldn't. Small, ridiculous things that made me feel vulnerable in ways I had long since sworn off. I wondered what it would feel like to speak to him without fear, to exchange words that didn't carry the weight of unspoken rules or the consequences of being seen. I wondered what it would feel like to laugh with him without caution, to let the corners of my mouth lift freely without the careful restraint I had spent months practicing. I wondered what it would feel like to exist in his world, even for a moment, as though just by standing in the same space he occupied, I could be part of something I had been denied for too long. I knew it was dangerous. I knew it was foolish. I knew, with every rational fiber in my body, that thinking about him like this could only lead to heartbreak. And yet, my instincts, stubborn, unrelenting, merciless, ignored all reason. Every pulse of my heart, every small intake of breath, every nerve ending seemed to reach for him, pulling me toward a gravity I hadn't signed up for but couldn't resist. Still, I tried. I tried to remind myself of the rules I had set before arriving in this quiet town. Do not fall. Do not care. Do not let anyone or anything here become more than a refuge from the chaos I had left behind. I had meticulously constructed a set of boundaries, fragile barriers I thought would keep me safe. And for a while, they had worked. I had walked past the empty streets, kept my thoughts to myself, avoided engagement, avoided attention, avoided everything that might make me vulnerable. And yet, with him, all of those rules crumbled like sandcastles in a tide. Every time I caught a glimpse of him, leaning casually against a railing, the sunlight making his hair shine like copper, his jawline sharp even in the soft glow of late afternoon, the faint crease in his forehead when he was concentrating on a book, I felt my defenses melt. He was a storm I hadn't seen coming, a force of nature that swept into my carefully constructed world and left it utterly rearranged. My chest ached, my stomach fluttered, and I had no choice but to surrender, just a little, to the pull of him. The first time he spoke to me, I convinced myself it had been accidental. Life has a way of orchestrating awkwardness in the most precise, inconvenient, cinematic ways, and of course, I had played right into it. I had spilled my coffee. Just one small misstep, one trembling hand, and the contents of my cup had cascaded across the library counter, dripping onto the floor and my shoes. I cursed under my breath, my face heating, wishing I could dissolve into the polished wooden floorboards rather than face the public humiliation of my clumsiness. And then he laughed. It wasn't a loud, mocking laugh that would have humiliated me further. It was a deep, rich sound, warm and resonant, and it made something inside my chest twist with an unfamiliar ache. It was a sound that held amusement, but also patience, kindness, and something I couldn't quite name, a softness that suggested he didn't just see the accident, but saw me. My reaction, my panic, the way I cursed under my breath, the tremor in my hands, it all registered in that brief smile, and instead of shame, there was an almost imperceptible acknowledgement, a tiny bridge forming between us in the midst of chaos. He crouched slightly to help, and when his fingers brushed the edge of mine, cleaning a stray drop of coffee from my hand, it felt electric. Not in the over-the-top, cliched movie way, but in a subtle, insistent way that sent shivers up my spine and made my chest tighten as if it were trying to contain something too large, too immediate, too impossible. "Careful," he said, voice low and smooth, but with a teasing edge that suggested amusement without cruelty. "Wouldn't want the first day here to end in disaster." It should have been a simple, ordinary line. A casual, helpful comment to ease the awkwardness of spilling coffee in a library. But it wasn't. The weight of it, delivered with that calm authority and unassuming warmth, struck me like a tether snapping. Suddenly, I was acutely aware of every detail, the way his sleeves were rolled up to reveal forearms that looked strong but not overdone, the faint scent of something clean and faintly earthy clinging to him, the subtle way the light caught his eyes and made them almost impossible to look away from. I wanted to tell him that I wasn't staying, that he would never see me again, that this brief encounter was meaningless in the grand scheme of my carefully planned escape. But my words caught in my throat, lodged somewhere between fear and longing, impossible to extract. My face felt hot. My chest felt tight. I felt ridiculous, caught in the act of existing too loudly, too visibly, too much, in the presence of someone who seemed capable of unraveling the careful rules I had set for myself. And yet, despite my embarrassment, despite my attempts to retreat into the safety of distance, there was a warmth in his smile that made it impossible to turn away. It wasn't flirtatious in a conventional sense. It wasn't overbearing or intrusive. It was quiet, soft, measured, but it carried weight, a weight that made me want to lean forward into it, to see what might happen if I let myself be seen just a little more. I lingered a moment longer than I should have, pretending to adjust the sleeve of my jacket, but really just stealing another glimpse, committing every detail to memory. The way he laughed again softly at something I hadn't noticed, the way his fingers flexed unconsciously, the subtle tilt of his head that suggested awareness, intelligence, humor, and something else, something I couldn't yet name but that made my heart beat erratically and my stomach twist with delicious tension. I reminded myself, over and over, to step away, to leave, to reclaim my sanctuary. But even as I lifted my suitcase and turned toward the door, I felt the invisible gravity of him pulling me back, urging me to stay, to linger, to see what would happen next. Every instinct I had spent months cultivating to protect myself, the distance, the caution, the careful planning, was useless against this quiet force, this magnetic presence that had the power to undo me with the simplest smile or glance. And as I left the library, coffee-stained and flustered, I realized something terrifying. I wanted more. I wanted to know his name. I wanted to know what he thought, what he felt, what he believed. I wanted to see him again, and I wanted him to notice me again, and I wanted, impossibly, to exist in his world, even just a little. And I had no choice but to admit that this was only the beginning. That the small town I had come to for healing was about to become a stage for something far more complicated, far more alive, far more dangerous than anything I had anticipated. I wanted him. And the more I tried not to, the stronger the desire became. I walked away that day with wet shoes and a pounding heart, trying to convince myself it was nothing. That the damp sneakers and the embarrassed flush on my cheeks were all that mattered. That this small-town encounter, fleeting and awkward, didn't matter at all. I repeated it like a mantra as I trudged along the cracked sidewalks, as the faint scent of honeysuckle and freshly cut grass drifted past, clinging to the corners of the warm summer air. My mind tried to reason, tried to tell itself that a stranger, someone I didn't know, someone I'd never see again, wasn't allowed to make my chest ache, to make my stomach flutter with a dangerous and forbidden curiosity. But the next day, and the day after that, he was there again. Always somewhere. Always just visible enough to catch my attention. The grocery store, the library, the park where the sun slanted lazily across the grass. Each sighting was a tiny spark in the quiet of my carefully guarded mind, igniting a fire I hadn't expected and could not control. It was as if the universe had decided, with quiet cruelty, to teach me a lesson about unpredictability, about chaos, about how fragile our attempts to escape truly are. The quiet town, which I had imagined as a sanctuary, a place of gentle solace where I could breathe without judgment or expectation, had transformed. It was no longer a haven, it was a stage. And he, Lucas, though I didn't know it yet, was the only actor who mattered. The main character in a story I hadn't agreed to star in, a story that had claimed me without warning. Every glance, every accidental brush of shoulders, every fleeting expression became a plot point I couldn't ignore. The rhythm of my days had shifted to accommodate him, a silent calendar marked by encounters that felt orchestrated by fate rather than coincidence. Every day, the pull grew stronger, like the tide creeping further up the sand than expected, persistent and inevitable. I hated how much I needed him. Hated it and wanted it all at once. Hated the way my pulse raced when I glimpsed the curve of his smile, the tilt of his head, the way sunlight caught the edges of his hair in a halo of warmth. Hated the way my chest tightened when our eyes met for the briefest moment and then slipped away, leaving me trembling and raw. And yet, I couldn't help myself. I couldn't escape it. I didn't even want to. And in that quiet, sun-drenched town, where the streets were familiar yet felt foreign beneath my shoes, I realized something that terrified me: my escape had failed. I hadn't run from life. Not really. Not from the chaos I had left behind, not from the heartbreaks I had tried to outrun, not from the mistakes I had hoped to forget. No, I hadn't run from life at all. I had run straight into him. Into Lucas. Into something alive, something urgent, something I could neither predict nor resist. And now, it wasn't just a casual crush, a fleeting curiosity. It was something bigger. Something that anchored itself to my chest, tightening with every heartbeat, insisting on being noticed. It was mid-afternoon when I saw him again, standing by the old diner at the corner of Main Street, the one that smelled faintly of fried eggs, pancake syrup, and a sweetness that clung to the air even when the front doors were closed. He leaned casually against the weathered railing, posture relaxed but perfect in its ease, like he belonged to this world in a way I couldn't hope to grasp. The sun fell across him, bouncing off his hair in a way that made it seem almost alive, kissed with fire and light, golden and untouchable. Every feature was illuminated with cinematic precision: the gentle curve of his jaw, the subtle arch of his brow, the tilt of his head that suggested thoughtfulness, quiet amusement, and a secret the world wasn't invited to know. I didn't realize I was staring until my chest tightened painfully, an urgent, electric ache that made my lungs feel too small for the heat that had risen in them. And suddenly, the usual noise of the small town, the distant hum of cars along the cracked streets, the low chirp of birds perched in sagging telephone wires, the whisper of wind through cracked leaves and over rusted fences, faded into nothing. The world became a blur. Only he remained in sharp focus. Only the curve of his smile, the way his fingers flexed lightly against the railing, the way the sunlight traced the lines of his face, existed. Everything else receded like it had never mattered, and I realized with a sudden, shivering clarity how dangerously I was losing myself in him. My mind spun, trying to catch up to my instincts. I told myself to look away, to remember why I had come here in the first place. To remember that this was supposed to be my sanctuary, a place to breathe, to heal, to reclaim the parts of myself the city had stolen. And yet, I couldn't. I couldn't move. My feet were planted as if rooted to the cracked sidewalk, my gaze locked on him like some magnetic force refused to release me. I wondered, again, foolishly, desperately, what it would feel like to step closer, to speak to him, to let the sound of my own voice mingle with the low, familiar warmth of his. To see his reaction to me beyond the brief, fleeting glances and accidental brushes that had marked every previous encounter. Would he laugh? Would he smile? Would he notice me in a way that made the ache in my chest dull, just for a moment, into something bearable? The questions, though unanswerable, burned in my mind, and I found myself leaning slightly forward, caught between fear and longing. There was a magnetism about him, a pull I couldn't resist and didn't want to resist. Every detail, the slight flex of his hand, the way the sunlight traced along his collarbone, the curve of his lips as they formed the beginnings of a smile, called to me. I hated how deeply I was drawn to it. Hated how much my pulse accelerated with anticipation, hated how every rational thought I had brought with me to this quiet town dissolved when he appeared. And yet, even as I acknowledged the danger, the absurdity, and the chaos of this attraction, I couldn't turn away. I took a shallow breath, pretending to glance at the peeling paint on the diner's door, but of course, my eyes betrayed me, and I was caught in the gravity of him again. I knew, then, that this town, quiet, sunlit, filled with the faint hum of life moving lazily around us, was no longer a place of escape. It was a place where everything I had tried to run from was waiting for me, and somehow, impossibly, it had taken the form of him. And so, I lingered, heart pounding, shoes damp from the morning's rain, my suitcase forgotten at my side, unable to step away from the pull of this stranger whose existence had turned my careful plans into a tangled mess of longing, curiosity, and the sharp ache of desire I had no intention of controlling. The stage was set, the story unfolding, and I, helplessly, unwillingly, was already part of it. I walked away that day with wet shoes and a pounding heart, dragging my suitcase along the cracked sidewalks, pretending to myself that it was nothing. That the damp leather and the small trickle of water soaking into my socks were the only evidence of my clumsiness, and that they didn't matter. That spilling coffee in front of a stranger, someone I barely knew, someone I might never see again, wasn't the start of something that would consume my thoughts and unsettle my chest in ways I couldn't control. I told myself it was nothing. That the universe wasn't conspiring to pull me into something I wasn't ready for. That my escape had not yet failed. But then he appeared again. And the next day. And the day after. Always there. Always visible, always just out of reach, like a photograph I could never stop looking at, like a song I couldn't get out of my head. In the library, between the dusty rows of books I had hoped would shield me from distraction, he was there. Leaning casually against a shelf, pretending to read while his eyes found me anyway. On the corner streets, the sun slanting low in gold, casting warm light across every building, he walked past, shoulders just brushing mine, and I felt it, a spark, an electric pulse, the subtle tug of gravity that I hadn't agreed to, that I couldn't resist. Even at the park, where the grass smelled sweet and faintly of summer rain, where cicadas hummed lazily in the trees, he appeared, unannounced, unbothered, magnetic. Each encounter became a tiny ignition in my chest, a fire I didn't want to control. My escape, the careful plan I had laid out to breathe and recover and disappear from the weight of my past life, was unraveling with each glimpse, each brush of awareness, each fleeting smile. The quiet town, which I had imagined as a sanctuary of peace, a place where no one would know my history or my heartbreak, had become a stage. And he was the only actor who mattered. Every glance, every movement, every small, incidental brush of skin across mine felt orchestrated, purposeful, charged. I tried to convince myself it was coincidence, that I was imagining it, but deep down, I knew better. Every day, the pull grew stronger. The ache, the longing, the awareness that I could no longer pretend he was just another stranger, it all intensified until it became a constant presence, like a shadow I couldn't shake. I hated how much I needed him. Hated it and wanted it all at once, and the contradiction made my chest ache in ways I couldn't put into words. The thought of him smiled at me as I passed the diner, sunlight catching the copper highlights in his hair, made my stomach twist and my hands tingle. The idea of him noticing me, really noticing me, made my pulse spike, my thoughts scatter. And yet, I also feared the intensity, the possibility that this draw between us was dangerous, reckless, forbidden even in its innocence. It was a mid-afternoon sun that revealed him fully for the first time in my conscious awareness, leaning against the weathered railing of the diner at the corner of Main Street, a place that smelled faintly of fried eggs, syrup, and the warmth of morning spent in small-town routine. The diner had been a backdrop, unnoticed, until he arrived, and suddenly it became cinematic, vivid, illuminated in golden light that traced every angle of his face. His hair, kissed by sunlight like fire itself, caught my eyes before I realized I was staring. His jawline, sharp yet softened by the faint shadow of stubble, seemed carved for moments like this. His head tilted slightly as he surveyed the street with an ease I envied, an unshakable confidence I couldn't claim. And then his eyes, those impossible eyes, found mine. I didn't realize I was staring until my chest tightened, the tightness spreading to my throat and stomach in a disorienting wave. The distant hum of traffic, the soft murmur of the wind through rusted leaves, the gentle chirp of birds settling on the telephone wires overhead, all of it fell away. The town, for all its sun-drenched streets and familiar corners, receded into nothingness. There was only him. Only the way the sunlight caught the curve of his lips, the flex of his fingers against the railing, the effortless poise that made me want to step closer and step into a world I wasn't supposed to enter. My mind spun, a mix of rational warnings and foolish desire. Step away. Remember why you're here. Remember the promise you made to yourself. But each time I thought of leaving, a magnetic pull held me in place. I wanted to know his name, to hear his voice, to understand the secrets I was certain lingered behind his eyes. I wanted to exist in his world, even for just a fraction of a moment. The rational part of me screamed to flee, to guard my heart, to protect the fragile safety I had constructed. But my body refused. My feet were rooted, my gaze locked, and every nerve ending thrummed with anticipation. It wasn't just attraction. It was as if the town itself conspired to keep us tethered. The warm summer air seemed to hum with the unspoken, with tension and possibility. The scent of syrup and frying eggs seemed richer, more intoxicating. The shadows cast by the late afternoon sun seemed longer, more deliberate, framing him like he belonged to a world I hadn't dared enter before. Every detail of him, the way his sleeve flexed as he shifted, the faint crease of thought on his forehead, the tilt of his head suggesting awareness and amusement, pulled me further into a story I hadn't agreed to write but was already living. I found myself leaning forward slightly, pretending to observe the chipped paint on the diner's door, hoping he wouldn't notice the way I lingered. And yet, of course, he did. His eyes found mine with a subtle, knowing warmth that made my chest ache anew. My carefully guarded plan of solitude, my attempt to escape life, had failed spectacularly. He was everywhere, impossible to ignore, drawing me in with a force that was both terrifying and irresistible. And in that moment, standing on the cracked sidewalk with shoes damp from the morning rain, my suitcase forgotten at my side, I understood something undeniable: I hadn't run from life at all. I had run straight into him. Into the gravity of his presence. Into the storm I wasn't ready for, but couldn't resist. And the small town, with its quiet streets and sunlit corners, would never be the same. Not while he existed in it, not while I existed in proximity to him, and not while the pull between us whispered promises I couldn't yet comprehend, but couldn't deny either. My chest ached, my stomach fluttered, my hands tingled with anticipation and fear, and a single thought repeated itself in my mind like a mantra I couldn't escape: he was the stage, and I was already caught in the story. The story was only beginning. And I, wet shoes and pounding heart included, was helpless to stop it. He stepped closer, crouching slightly to help me clean up the mess of spilled coffee, and I felt an involuntary shiver run down my spine. The cup had been clumsy, tipped over by my own nervous hands, and the brown liquid spread across the counter like a slow-moving tide. But it didn't matter that the coffee was now staining the worn wood and leaving dark rings. What mattered, what froze me in place, was the space he occupied as he leaned forward, careful and deliberate, close enough that his presence pressed against my awareness like a living weight. His fingers brushed mine when he picked up the cup, the touch so fleeting and subtle that I almost questioned it. Almost. But the small spark, the tingling current that ran along my skin, told me it had happened. That there had been contact. That my pulse had shifted in a way that was impossible to ignore. I had expected him to be distant, polite, perhaps even disinterested, and yet here he was, leaning in, crouching to meet my level, moving with a careful attentiveness that made the world around me recede. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I could only exist in that sliver of time, suspended, aware of every sound, every shadow, every small detail that made him real. "Careful," he said, his voice soft but firm, brushing a stray drop from my hand as if he were tending to something fragile, delicate, almost sacred. The words, casual in their tone, carried a weight I hadn't anticipated. Wouldn't want the first day here to end in disaster. I looked up at him, trying to read his expression, and caught the briefest flicker of something shy, almost hesitant, in the corner of his mouth. A smile that wasn't a smile, not fully, but it carried a warmth that twisted inside my chest. I hadn't expected this. I had expected normal, expected indifference, expected nothing at all. But the curve of his lips, the way his eyes met mine without judgment, without insistence, made my chest tighten and my stomach flip in ways I wasn't prepared for. My heartbeat spiked, thudding painfully against my ribs, loud enough that I was certain he could hear it. And yet, I couldn't look away. I wanted to tell him I wasn't staying. That this town, with its quiet streets and honeyed sunlight, wasn't my home. That I would pack my bags, leave before anyone could know my name, and never return. I wanted to say that this pull between us, this inexplicable, immediate connection, was dangerous, foolish, and entirely my own responsibility. I wanted to warn him away, to protect us both from the unspoken tension that had already begun to coil between us. But the words caught in my throat. Tangled, stubborn, trapped in the nervous energy that coiled in my chest like a live wire. I swallowed hard, each gulp a painful effort, each breath a reminder of the absurdity of feeling so much for someone I barely knew. My pulse hammered in my ears, rapid, uncontrollable, and all I could do was offer a weak smile. A smile that said nothing and everything at once. A smile that tried to keep me safe while betraying the truth of my curiosity, my longing, my undeniable, reckless attraction. For a long moment, we just stood there, suspended in the gentle chaos of the small town. The hum of life continued around us, faint and peripheral. Tires hissed on the asphalt outside, a dog barked in the distance, a breeze stirred the scent of grass and coffee from nearby gardens. But all of it was background noise to the way my heart throbbed, to the way the air seemed heavier around him, charged with an electricity that made my skin tingle. The sunlight fell in warm patches across the worn wooden counter, highlighting the soft curve of his jaw, the faint shadow of stubble, the effortless way he leaned into the moment, aware and unafraid. I wanted to run. I wanted to escape the chaos of feeling something I wasn't supposed to feel, something that tugged at me with such sudden intensity it left me breathless. I wanted to pretend this was nothing, that I could shake it off, that the fleeting contact of fingers, the warmth in his voice, and the almost imperceptible lift of his lips hadn't meant anything at all. But even as I imagined turning away, stepping back into the safety of anonymity, a small, stubborn part of me refused. That part, the part one usually kept locked away, wanted to stay. Wanted to feel the tension stretch between us, to let the pull deepen, to savor the dangerous thrill of being seen. The coffee spill became irrelevant. The dampness on my shoes, the sticky spot on my hand, the clumsy way I had handled the situation, they didn't matter at all. What mattered was him. The way he had crouched just enough to meet me where I was, the gentleness with which he touched the mess, the way he spoke like it was casual but intentional, like he was holding the moment as carefully as he held the cup. Every detail, every small motion, every fleeting glance felt deliberate, like the world had paused to let this encounter exist just for us. I noticed the faint crease in his brow as he glanced down at the counter, the subtle tension in his shoulders that belied the easy confidence he radiated, and the quiet way his eyes flicked to mine again, almost checking if I was okay, almost asking permission to stay in my space without words. I hated that I wanted to let him stay. Hated that I longed for it. Hated that even the smallest brush of our hands had already begun to unravel my carefully guarded boundaries. And yet, part of me, the reckless, daring part one usually tried to ignore, thrilled at it. Thrilled that someone could make the town feel alive in a way it hadn't before. The sunlight shifted, brushing across the rim of the cup he held, catching the golden tones in his hair. The smell of coffee lingered, strong and warm, clinging to the air between us. I could feel the heat of the day, the gentle brush of the breeze on my skin, the faint tremor of my own fingers as they lingered near his. And in that moment, it wasn't just coffee, not just a clumsy accident, not just the small town. It was him. It was the pull, the tension, the impossible gravity he exuded without even trying. I realized, with a shiver of both fear and desire, that he had already changed the way I saw this town. The way I saw the streets, the buildings, the sunlight. Even the way I saw myself. The careful safety I had tried to construct, the distance I had sworn to maintain, the plan to keep myself apart from everything dangerous or intense, all of it had begun to crumble in the warmth of that fleeting moment. And I knew, in a way that was both exhilarating and terrifying, that nothing would ever be quite the same again. I wanted to ask his name. Wanted to know why the curve of his smile made me ache, why the brush of his fingers made me tremble. Wanted to tell him that he had ruined my carefully planned escape before I'd even unpacked my life. But I couldn't. Not yet. All I could do was stand there, smile weakly, breathe unevenly, and feel the quiet, seismic shift in my world as he straightened, holding the cup like it was an anchor, like it was a bridge between the life I had tried to control and the life I might now be forced to explore. And as I finally stepped back, trying to gather my scattered thoughts, I felt a part of me cling desperately to that spark, that brief connection, that silent acknowledgement that the universe had orchestrated something reckless, beautiful, and terrifying. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if I would see him again, or if I would survive the pull he had already set in motion. But I did know one thing: my escape had failed. The town, the coffee spill, the warm sunlight, all of it had conspired to throw me into the orbit of someone I couldn't ignore, someone I couldn't resist. And in that realization, my chest tightened and my pulse raced, because for the first time since arriving, I felt alive. Days passed, and yet somehow, every day felt like the first time I'd seen him. Each morning, I woke with a lingering sense of anticipation, a subtle tension in my chest I couldn't explain. It wasn't that I consciously expected to see him, but deep down, my body seemed to be waiting, aching for the pull of his presence, for the spark of recognition that had started the first day. I would walk the same cracked sidewalks, glance into the same windows, pass the same sun-warmed corners, half hoping he wouldn't be there, and half hoping he would. And more often than I wanted to admit, he was. The small library, with its rows of dusty shelves and faint scent of old paper and polished wood, had become my sanctuary. I thought it would be the place where I could hide, where I could breathe, where no one would find me. The sunlight poured in lazily through tall windows, catching the specks of dust floating in golden streams, turning the quiet air into a cathedral of light. I would wander the aisles, reaching for a book on the top shelf, trying to convince myself I was alone, that I could remain invisible, that the careful walls I had built around my heart could hold. And then I would feel it, the subtle shift of the air behind me, a shadow stretching across the floor just a fraction too long, a quiet presence that seemed to press against the back of my mind. I would turn, almost unwillingly, and there he was. Leaning casually against the edge of a shelf, one hand brushing along the spines of books, pretending to read, yet somehow, effortlessly, managing to glance at me without making it obvious. My stomach would knot every single time, like gravity itself had tilted, like my heart had a mind of its own and was skipping beats in rebellion. And he didn't need to speak for the tension to thrum between us, a single flicker of his eyes, the curve of a jaw, the faint tilt of his head, and my chest tightened in a way that was almost painful, almost intoxicating. Every encounter in that library became a private ritual of longing. I would catch myself lingering longer than necessary at the shelf where I knew he might appear, trying not to breathe too loudly, trying not to let him see the way my pulse raced. And yet, each glance, each brush of accidental contact when our hands hovered over the same book, each fleeting smile, or what I convinced myself was a smile, made the library feel alive in a way it never had before. The quiet was no longer empty, it was electric. And then there were the corner streets, bathed in the warm glow of the late summer lights, the kind that made shadows long and soft, that turned mundane brick walls into something cinematic. The bulbs overhead flickered faintly, casting uneven circles of gold on the cracked pavement. The faint smell of freshly cut grass drifted from the town square, mingling with the aroma of bread from the small bakery down the street, the distant hum of traffic on the outskirts of town. Everything seemed heightened, magnified, as though the world itself was conspiring to make these moments feel significant, to draw me toward him. And he was there, as if deliberately placed, as if fate, or some mischievous force, had decided I could not escape the pull of him. I would catch glimpses of him walking past, his hat tipped just slightly over his eyes, shoulders relaxed in a way that made the world feel impossibly still. Sometimes he would glance up, and I would catch him looking at me for just a fraction of a second, a quick, unreadable flicker that left my chest pounding long after he was gone. And even when I tried to tell myself it was nothing, even when I convinced myself I was imagining it, my body knew better. My heart knew better. There was a force between us, invisible and undeniable, pulling me forward, making me ache for a connection I had no right to want. The park, the quiet park with its oak trees arching overhead, their leaves rustling faintly in the gentle breeze, and the river glinting with gold from the setting sun, was somehow worse. I had thought it would be a refuge, a place to sit on a worn bench with a book, to let my thoughts drift freely and my worries fade. But even here, he appeared. Sometimes on the walking path, sometimes beneath the long branches of a tree, where sunlight dappled his hair in warm highlights, where shadows caught the contours of his face and made him seem almost untouchable, almost unreal. I would try to lose myself in a paragraph, to focus on the words printed on the page, to convince myself that the park was my sanctuary, my private world. But then our eyes would meet. And the shift was immediate, subtle, catastrophic. Every glance became a heartbeat. Every brief recognition of my presence, a pull I could not resist. Even the smallest, almost imperceptible smile tugged at something deep inside me, a longing I could neither deny nor control. My hands would tremble slightly, my breath would hitch, my chest would tighten in a delicious ache of anticipation and fear. I hated how much I needed him. Hated it and wanted it all at once, this foolish, thrilling, terrifying sensation that left me dizzy and alive all at the same time. It wasn't just the way he looked, though that alone was enough to make the world feel tilted. It was the way he existed in the space around me, the subtle awareness of my presence, the way he carried himself as if he belonged to the world yet was untouchable by it. It was the quiet gravity that drew me in, the silent pull that made the sun-drenched streets, the gentle wind, the soft rustle of leaves, and the faint scent of summer feel more vivid, more alive, more dangerous. And the park became a stage for tension I didn't know I could bear. Every footstep on the gravel path, every snap of a twig underfoot, every whisper of whine through the trees seemed amplified, underscoring the invisible thread pulling me toward him. Even when he was distracted, even when he didn't notice me, I felt him. I felt the presence, the force, the possibility of everything that might be between us, and I found myself leaning just slightly, holding my book a little closer, pretending to read but listening for the cadence of his movements. The late summer sun painted everything in gold, and I noticed how it touched the edge of his cheekbones, the sweep of his hair, the curve of his jaw. I noticed the way the light caught the faint glimmer in his eyes, a sparkle that felt like a secret waiting to be shared. I wondered, not for the first time, what it would feel like to walk to him without hesitation, to speak without fear, to laugh without caution, to let myself exist entirely in his world for even a moment. But the rules I had set for myself, the walls I had built so carefully, kept me rooted, hesitant, trembling. And yet, no matter how many times I told myself to leave, to ignore him, to retreat into the safety of solitude, my gaze found him again. My mind circled back, always, to that small, impossible pull. Every encounter, no matter how fleeting, became a heartbeat in itself, a reminder that my escape had failed. That this quiet town, my supposed refuge, had become a stage for someone I could not stop thinking about. Someone who had become the axis around which my days spun, whether I wanted it or not. Even as the days stretched into weeks, the rhythm of our unspoken encounters, library aisles, sunlit streets, park benches, wove itself into my consciousness. Each moment, each stolen glance, each subtle movement etched into my memory with painful clarity. I hated it and loved it and needed it all at once. The longing, the tension, the impossible gravity between us, it consumed me, rewrote my perception of the town, of the sunlight, of the quiet streets I had hoped would shelter me. And I knew, with a quiet certainty, that I could never pretend again that this was just coincidence. That he was everywhere because it was fate, or perhaps because the universe had a cruel sense of timing. That my heart had betrayed me, had chosen its own direction, pulling me into a story I hadn't agreed to write, a story I didn't yet understand, but one I was powerless to resist. Every glance from him, every brief, almost imperceptible smile, every moment of presence in the sun-drenched small town became a heartbeat. Every heartbeat reminded me that my escape was no longer possible. I hadn't run from life. I had run straight into him. And the pull, the tension, the ache, the longing, it was only beginning. I hated how much I liked him. Hated it with every fiber of my being, yet needed it all at once, like oxygen I couldn't live without. It was exhausting, confusing, thrilling, and terrifying all at once, a constant, pulsing ache in my chest that refused to be ignored. I tried to remind myself of the rules I had come here to follow. I had come to heal, to escape the mess of my life, to step away from the chaos that had consumed me for so long. I had planned for quiet, for solitude, for the comforting anonymity of a small town that didn't know my mistakes, my heartbreaks, or my failures. And yet, he was everywhere. Not physically, not always, but in a way that made every street, every corner, every lingering sunset feel as though it had been rewritten for him alone. The first moment I noticed him, I hadn't even known his name. I didn't know who he was, where he lived, or what kind of life he led, but the way he existed in the world, effortlessly magnetic, calm yet untouchable, made it impossible not to notice him. Every movement, every gesture, every glance carried weight I couldn't define, as though the universe had quietly aligned around him and refused to let me turn away. I would catch myself watching from the park benches, pretending to read, pretending to lose myself in the words of novels I barely remembered opening. I would see him walking past, hat tipped just slightly over his eyes, shoulders relaxed but purposeful, and my chest would tighten, my stomach coil into knots. He was the kind of presence that didn't just fill a room, he filled the air around him, altering its temperature, making every mundane detail feel sharper, more vivid, more alive. The complication arrived like a sudden summer storm, an abrupt and unrelenting force I hadn't been prepared for. It wasn't in the library, or the streets, or the park where I had begun to notice him more than I should have, it came when I finally learned who he was. Lucas. The name alone carried weight in the town. Whispers followed him wherever he went, stories punctuated with awe and a subtle, unspoken fear. He had been hurt, so badly that even the bravest of hearts would hesitate to approach him. And he didn't trust easily. Not strangers. Not friends. Not even people who wanted to care for him. He moved through the world with shadows clinging to him, a quiet armor that no one could breach without consequence. And now, I knew. I wasn't supposed to break through. I wasn't supposed to fall. Not into him, not into this magnetic, dangerous pull disguised as charm. And yet, there I was. And there he was. Every encounter, every glance, every accidental brush of our hands made the rules I had set crumble into dust. The boundaries I had drawn around myself, around my heart, were meaningless in the presence of someone who felt like the gravity my entire world had been missing. It was late one night when the full weight of it hit me. I had wandered toward the park, needing air, needing solitude, needing the quiet that only a small town at night could offer. The streets were deserted, save for the faint glow of street lamps that bathed the cracked pavement in pools of golden light. The warm summer air wrapped around me like a blanket, heavy and fragrant, carrying the scent of rain from earlier in the evening. Wet grass clung to my shoes, and the damp earth smelled of promise, of growth, of moments suspended between what had been and what could be. I had come to think, to breathe, to calm the storm in my chest, and yet the storm had a name now. Lucas. His name echoed through my mind with every step, repeating like a mantra I couldn't control. And then I saw him. Not walking past, not casually leaning against a railing, there he was, standing beneath the old oak that had become my favorite spot in the park, the one whose branches arched like protective arms over the benches. He hadn't noticed me yet. I fought to turn away, to retreat into the safety of shadows, but my feet betrayed me. My heart demanded I stay. My body insisted I watch, even from the distance, even if nothing happened. The moonlight caught the curve of his jaw, the angle of his cheekbones, the faint glint of moisture in his hair from the earlier rain. The faint hum of cicadas filled the air, punctuating the silence, and the rustle of leaves whispered through the night. Everything felt sharper, more cinematic, as though the world had slowed to focus on him, on us, on the unspoken tension coiling like smoke between us. I wanted to run, I wanted to hide, but I couldn't. Not when he was here, under the oak, moving through the night with the ease and danger of someone who belonged to every place except the one he occupied at that moment. Then he noticed me. A tilt of his head, a flicker of recognition in his eyes, and I felt my chest leap into my throat. The air seemed to compress, heavy with anticipation, with longing, with the quiet ache of connection that had grown far too fast, far too deep. My pulse thudded like a drum in my ears, and I realized that all the careful control I had tried to maintain, all the boundaries I had drawn to protect myself, had been pointless. Completely and utterly pointless. And yet, even knowing the danger, even knowing the whispers that followed his name, even knowing the walls he had built around himself, I wanted him. I wanted to step into his world, to let him in, to feel whatever this was that had begun to ignite between us. It was forbidden in its way, not in law, not in morality, but in the delicate, precarious rules I had constructed for my own survival. Yet the draw, the pull, the gravity, was impossible to resist. Every instinct, every heartbeat, screamed at me to approach, to take the risk, to stop running. The park became a stage for every thought, every hesitation, every wild, reckless possibility. The glint of water in the river reflected gold, flickering like firelight against the night, and the gentle sway of the trees seemed almost to bend toward us. I could hear his breathing, subtle and rhythmic, a quiet counterpoint to the cacophony of my thoughts. I wondered what it would feel like to speak to him without fear, to let a single laugh escape, to reach out without caution, to touch the surface of his life even briefly. My chest tightened at the thought, a delicious ache of anticipation and dread. And in that suspended moment, I understood something I hadn't before. I hadn't come to the town to escape life. I hadn't come to hide from the chaos and heartbreak. I had come to heal, yes, but healing, I realized now, wasn't about hiding. It was about confronting the storms, the shadows, the risks, the pull of something or someone that could change everything. And Lucas with the haunted eyes and the effortless magnetism, Lucas with the shadow clinging to him like armor, was that storm. He was the pull I hadn't been ready for, the danger I hadn't anticipated, the impossible possibility that would rewrite the rules of my carefully contained world. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood there, heart racing, every sense alive, every nerve taut with anticipation and fear. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that whatever this was, whatever this pull, it had only begun. That my escape had failed. That my heart had betrayed me. That in the quiet of the park, under the lingering scent of rain and summer, I had stumbled straight into something I couldn't avoid, something I could never unsee, something I couldn't walk away from. And in that instant, under the golden-tinged shadows of the oak trees, I realized I was already lost. I hated how much I liked him. Hated it with a ferocity that surprised even me, yet needed it all at once, like air I couldn't live without. It was exhausting and confusing, thrilling and terrifying, a constant ache coiling in my chest that refused to be ignored. I tried to remind myself of the rules I had come here to follow. I had left the city seeking refuge, seeking quiet, seeking a life stripped of chaos and heartbreak. A place where I could breathe without guilt, where no one could remind me of every mistake I had made, every love I had lost, every expectation I had failed to meet. I had imagined a town small enough to vanish into, where my name could be nothing more than a whisper on a passing breeze. And yet, he was everywhere. Not physically, not in a way that demanded attention, but in a way that made every street, every corner, every sun-drenched moment shimmer with meaning. The first time I saw him, I didn't even know his name. I didn't know who he was, or where he lived, or what his life looked like. But the way he existed in the world, calm, magnetic, almost untouchable, made him impossible to ignore. Every motion, every subtle tilt of his head, every faint flicker of his eyes seemed deliberate, as if the universe itself had positioned him in a way I couldn't avoid noticing. I would catch myself staring when he walked past on the sunlit streets, the kind of streets where the pavement cracked just enough to let the green sprout of grass peek through, where the late summer light caught the edges of buildings and turned everything golden. My chest would tighten, my stomach would twist, and my breath would catch. I hated the way my body betrayed me, the way it seemed to recognize him before my mind even processed his presence. The library was worse. I had thought it would be my refuge, a place to hide between shelves stacked high with forgotten stories. The scent of old paper and polished wood was calming, almost intoxicating, a soft, quiet world that let me pretend I was alone. I would wander among the rows, pretending to read, pretending to lose myself in someone else's story, only to feel the weight of his presence before I even saw him. The shadow of someone leaning against the edge of a shelf, pretending to read, yet managing to glance at me in a way that wasn't obvious, it left me breathless. My heart skipped beats every time, each one like a silent drum that reminded me how foolish I was for noticing, for wanting, for caring. The complication hit like a sudden summer storm. I learned his name, Lucas. The name carried weight in the town, whispered in hushed tones with awe and a faint, unspoken fear. Stories lingered in corners of cafes and grocery stores. He had been hurt, deeply, in ways I would never fully understand. He didn't trust easily, and his past followed him like a shadow, a constant reminder that he was both untouchable and dangerous. I realized, suddenly, that I wasn't supposed to break through. I wasn't supposed to fall. Not into him, not into this magnetic force that seemed to orbit around my life. And yet, here I was. And yet, there he was. Everywhere I went, the pull grew stronger. Every glance, every accidental brush of hands, every brief moment of recognition felt like a spark igniting a fire I hadn't anticipated, couldn't control, and didn't want to resist. The careful rules I had made for myself, the boundaries, the plans, the promises to remain safe, crumbled with each heartbeat, replaced by a reckless, thrilling need that left me dizzy and breathless. It was late one night when it became undeniable. I had wandered toward the park, needing air, needing space, needing a reprieve from the storm inside me. The streets were empty, silent except for the faint hum of distant traffic, the whisper of leaves rustling in the gentle summer breeze, and the occasional chirp of a cicada somewhere near the river. The warm night air clung to my skin, carrying the scent of rain from earlier in the day, sweet and earthy, filling my lungs with the kind of freshness that makes the world feel suspended between reality and dream. And then I saw him. Standing beneath the old oak tree I had come to favor in the park, its branches arching like protective arms over the worn benches. Moonlight filtered through the leaves, painting him in a glow that made him seem almost untouchable, almost otherworldly. I froze. My instinct screamed at me to turn and run, to hide in the shadows and pretend I hadn't seen him, but my body refused. My heart demanded I stay. My chest tightened, my stomach lurched, and the quiet of the night became unbearable. He was real, and he was here, and I couldn't deny the pull any longer. He noticed me. A subtle tilt of his head, a flicker of recognition in his eyes, and my breath hitched. Every sound around us seemed to fade, the gentle rustle of the leaves, the faint hum of the distant town, the rhythmic lap of the river against the bank. All that existed in that moment was him and me, and the invisible thread that had been winding between us for days, weeks, stretching tighter with each encounter, seemed to hum with life. I wanted to speak, to say something, anything, but the words were trapped in my throat. I wanted to laugh, to reach out, to step into his world for even a single moment, to let myself exist fully in his orbit. But I hesitated. I had rules. I had boundaries. I had come to this town to heal, to find peace, to reclaim the parts of myself that had been lost to the chaos of city life and heartbreak. And yet, every glance, every step closer to him, every subtle movement of his hands, every shadowed smile threatened to dismantle everything I thought I had carefully constructed. The park, once my sanctuary, became a stage. The golden reflection of the river at sunset flickered across the water, mirroring the tension coiling in my chest. The air smelled of rain-soaked grass and damp earth, each breath sharp and intoxicating. The trees, swaying gently, seemed to lean toward us, as if the world itself recognized the storm building between two people who had no business being so close, yet could not resist. I wondered, not for the first time, what it would feel like to speak to him without fear. To laugh without caution. To let a single smile escape and know he would see it for what it was, genuine, unguarded, mine. Every instinct in me pulled toward him. Every heartbeat screamed that he was more than just someone in this town, more than a stranger, more than a fleeting spark. He had become a force, magnetic and untouchable, yet terrifyingly close. And yet, I tried to remind myself. I tried to remember the lessons I had come here to learn. I wasn't supposed to fall. I wasn't supposed to want this. I wasn't supposed to let the town, with its quiet streets and soft summer nights, become more than a refuge. I wasn't supposed to fall into Lucas, into the danger disguised as charm, into the pull I couldn't resist. And yet, every part of me betrayed that resolve. Every time he looked at me, every time our eyes met even briefly, I felt my defenses crumble. I felt foolish. I hated how much I needed him. Hated it and craved it at the same time, a delicious contradiction that left me dizzy and lightheaded. And as I stood there, beneath the oak tree, bathed in the moonlight and the lingering scent of rain, I realized that my escape had failed entirely. I hadn't run from life. I hadn't run from heartbreak, from chaos, from mistakes. I had run straight into him. Mistakes. I had run straight into him. Every instinct told me to step back, to protect myself, to maintain the careful distance I had cultivated so fiercely. But my heart had other ideas. My chest tightened in a way that was almost painful, my fingers twitched with the longing to reach out, to bridge the invisible distance between us. I could feel the electric tension humming in the air, connecting us in a way that was impossible to ignore. The world beyond the park, the small town streets, the distant hum of the few late-night cars, all of it faded. There was only him and me, and the undeniable gravity between us. The park became a crucible for my emotions. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the faint lapping of the river, the distant chirp of nocturnal insects, amplified the tension coiling in my chest. Every shadow, every glint of moonlight across his features, every subtle tilt of his head felt deliberate, orchestrated by a universe that seemed to have conspired to bring us together despite all the reasons we shouldn't be. My mind spun with questions and possibilities. What would it feel like to speak, to touch, to let him see all the longing I had tried to hide? And at the same time, a sharp, cold fear reminded me that to give in, even for a moment, was to risk everything I had been running from. And yet, even in that fear, there was a small, rebellious part of me that wanted to surrender. That wanted to let the pull, the gravity, the storm that was Lucas sweep me away. That wanted to step into the unknown, to let him in, to see what it would be like to exist fully in his world, if only for a single, fragile moment. And in that suspended, quiet, golden-tinged night, I knew something I hadn't allowed myself to admit. I was already lost. I wasn't escaping anymore. I wasn't running. I was standing, rooted in the impossible pull of someone I shouldn't want, someone who carried shadows, someone who held the power to change everything I had thought about safety, distance, and longing. And I knew, deep in my bones, that this was only the beginning. That the storm had only just arrived. That my heart, foolish and reckless, had already chosen its course. And in that instant, under the oak, beneath the lingering scent of rain and the glow of summer moonlight, I understood a truth I could no longer deny. I had run straight into him, and there was no turning back. I hated how much I liked him. Hated it with a force that made me feel both ridiculous and alive, like my heart had been hijacked by something I couldn't resist. And yet, I needed it, craved it, and despised myself for needing it all at once. It was exhausting, confusing, thrilling, and terrifying in equal measure, a constant ache coiling in my chest that refused to be ignored. Every time I thought I had regained control, every time I reminded myself of the rules I had set for coming here, something in his presence unraveled me. I had left the city thinking I could escape. Escape the chaos, the heartbreak, the constant pressure of expectations I could never meet. I thought this small town, with its quiet streets and sleepy corners, would be my refuge. A place where no one knew my name, where I could breathe without guilt, where I could disappear into the background and perhaps reclaim some semblance of peace. I had imagined myself walking along the cracked sidewalks, losing myself in the faint hum of cicadas or the distant clatter of an old train whistle, letting the town's simplicity wash over me. I had imagined solitude, calm, anonymity. And then I saw him. He didn't appear like someone from a daydream. He didn't storm into my life with a grand entrance or a dramatic gesture. He was leaning casually against the railing of the diner, a little worn and sun-bleached, the kind of place that smelled faintly of syrup, fried eggs, and strong coffee. The sun caught his hair, tracing gold along the strands as if the light itself had been drawn to him. My breath caught. It wasn't just the sunlight, it was the way he existed in the world, like he belonged to it, yet was untouchable, like a secret the universe wasn't ready to reveal. His eyes found mine before I even realized I was staring. That look, it wasn't curiosity. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't even neutral. It was knowing, like he could see everything I was running from, everything I was trying to hide. And instead of judgment, there was something else, something that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. My feet refused to move. My heart slammed against my chest. I wanted to turn away, to escape, but my body betrayed me. I told myself it was a mistake. That I shouldn't even be thinking about him. I had come here to heal, to hide, to forget. And yet, every instinct in me, the pulse in my chest, the tremor in my fingers, the flutter in my stomach, pulled me closer to him. That first encounter wasn't dramatic. There was no cinematic lightning or thunder. There was just me, spilling my coffee on the pavement like some tragic comedy of errors, and him crouched down to help me clean it up. His fingers brushed mine when he picked up the cup, and a spark, small, electric, undeniable, ran through me. "Careful," he said, his voice low, smooth, yet firm, brushing a stray drop from my hand. "Wouldn't want the first day here to end in disaster." It was a brief smile, almost shy, but it made my heart flip in ways I wasn't prepared for. I wanted to tell him that I wasn't staying, that he wouldn't see me again, that I was a visitor here, a ghost in this small town. But the words tangled in my throat. I swallowed hard, feeling the pulse of my own heartbeat echo in my ears. Instead, I managed a weak smile, the kind that said nothing and everything at the same time. And then the days passed. Every encounter felt like the first. I saw him at the library, pretending to read while somehow managing to glance at me without being obvious. I felt the shadow of him behind me before I even knew he was there, leaning casually against a shelf, just out of reach, watching me. Every time our eyes met, my heart skipped, my stomach twisted, and the world felt slightly off-kilter. I would look away, but not before catching the small smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. He knew. I knew he knew. And the tension between us, silent, electric, grew heavier with each passing day. The streets, the park, the corner cafes, he was everywhere, like a force I couldn't escape. The corner streets glowed under the warm amber of late summer lights, the bulbs flickering softly as if in rhythm with my pulse. The faint scent of cut grass, the distant hum of traffic, the occasional laugh of someone walking past, all of it became a backdrop for our silent game. I would catch him walking past, hat tipped slightly over his eyes, shoulders relaxed, casual. And yet, every time, it felt like a punch to my chest, a reminder of a pull I couldn't resist. The park was the worst. My sanctuary, a place I thought would be mine alone, became a stage where the drama of longing played out. Every evening I sat on the worn benches, trying to lose myself in a book, pretending I was alone, and every time I lifted my eyes, there he was, under the arching branches of the old oak or walking along the path, completely unaware, or so I told myself. And when our eyes met, even briefly, something shifted inside me. Every glance was a heartbeat, every faint smile a tug I couldn't resist. I hated it. Hated it with every fiber of my being, yet I craved it. Then came the complication, sudden and undeniable. His name, Lucas, was whispered in town, spoken with a mixture of awe, caution, and a trace of fear. He wasn't just someone to glance at in passing. He was Lucas, a man whose past carried shadows that clung to him like second skin. He had been hurt before, deeply, profoundly, and it made him cautious, distant, untouchable. I wasn't supposed to break through. I wasn't supposed to fall. And yet, here I was, standing on the park's path in the warm summer night, the air heavy with the scent of rain-soaked grass, the river glittering faintly in the distance. He stood beneath the oak tree, moonlight weaving through the leaves, brushing across his features like it was meant to highlight every secret he carried. My body wanted to run, but my heart refused. Every instinct, every heartbeat, every nerve in me screamed to stay, to see him, to exist in this impossible moment. I wanted to speak, but the words caught in my throat. I wanted to laugh, to reach out, to let myself exist fully in his world for even a fleeting second. But I reminded myself of the rules I had set. I wasn't supposed to fall. I wasn't supposed to let this quiet town become more than a sanctuary. I wasn't supposed to let myself get lost in him. And yet, every glance, every subtle movement of his hands, every quiet tilt of his head, made my resolve crumble. I felt foolish. I hated the neediness in myself, the longing that was already so strong it hurt. But beneath that fear, there was a small, rebellious part of me that wanted to surrender. That wanted to let the pull between us sweep me away. That wanted to step into the unknown, to let him in, to see what it would feel like to exist in his orbit. And for the first time since arriving in this town, I realized the truth: I was already lost. I wasn't escaping anymore. I wasn't running. I had come here to find peace, yet here I stood, trembling beneath the oak, the night air thick with possibility, my heart tethered to someone I shouldn't want but couldn't ignore. Every sound around us, the whisper of leaves, the lapping of the river, the distant hum of tires, faded into nothing. All that existed was him and me, and the invisible thread that had been building between us for days, weeks, stretched taut and hummed with life. The town, the streets, the cafes, the library, even the small diner where we first met, it had become a stage, and he was the only actor I noticed. Every instinct told me to step back, to protect myself, to honor the rules I had come here to follow. But my heart, foolish and reckless, refused. My pulse hammered in my chest. My fingers twitched with the longing to reach for him, to close the distance. The world beyond the park, beyond the oak tree, beyond the river and the streetlights, ceased to exist. There was only him, only me, and the storm that had already arrived. And I understood, in that suspended, quiet moment, that my escape had failed entirely. I hadn't run from life. I hadn't run from heartbreak or chaos or mistakes. I had run straight into him. And in that realization, a shiver of fear and longing ran through me. I knew there was no turning back. I had already chosen him, even before words were spoken, even before hands touched, even before we allowed ourselves to fall. In that instant, beneath the oak, with the warm, damp scent of summer and rain clinging to the air, I knew something I hadn't allowed myself to admit. I was already caught in the orbit of something bigger than myself. Something dangerous, magnetic, impossible. And I knew, deep in my bones, that this was only the beginning. That every glance, every touch, every heartbeat would pull me further. That my heart, reckless and unguarded, had already made its choice. I was no longer running. I had stopped. And in stopping, I realized that perhaps, finally, I had found something worth the risk. I swallowed hard, my throat tight, my heart impossible to still. There was so much I wanted to say, so many questions I wanted to ask. But all I could do was stand there, feeling the pull of him, feeling the danger, feeling the thrill, the fear, the longing that left me trembling in the warm summer night. I realized then, in that quiet, suspended moment, that I had stopped running entirely. I had tried to escape chaos, but I had found something infinitely more complicated. I had found him. Every moment became a dangerous game. I would tell myself to act normal, to look down at my phone, to pretend I hadn't noticed him standing across the street, leaning casually against the faded brick wall of the grocery store. But my eyes betrayed me, inevitably drawn to him as if by some magnetic force. He would glance up, just briefly, enough to catch my gaze, and my chest would lurch like I had been punched. It wasn't just attraction, it was longing, raw and unfiltered, wrapped in fear, wrapped in anticipation, wrapped in something I didn't fully understand yet. In the crowded town square, it was worse. The air hummed with the chatter of townsfolk, the clink of coins at the market, the laughter of children chasing one another across the cobblestones. And there he was, moving through the crowd with that effortless presence that made it impossible not to notice him. I would brush past him accidentally, or so I told myself, but every touch sent sparks racing through me, like electricity shooting from his fingertips straight into my veins. I wanted him, but I also wanted to protect myself. Protect my fragile heart from the inevitable heartbreak I knew was lurking somewhere in the corners of this quiet town. The diner became our unspoken battleground. I would sit in the corner, pretending to read, pretending to be lost in my own world, while he moved about, chatting with the waitress, reading a newspaper, laughing softly at something someone said. I would steal glances, hidden under the rim of my cup or behind the pages of a menu. And every time he looked up, even briefly, the air between us seemed to charge, taut and electric. My stomach would twist. My chest would tighten. I hated how much power he had over me without even trying. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Every smile, every glance, every accidental touch was a thrill and a warning. I tried to convince myself that I could manage it, that I could contain my feelings, that I could act normal. But it was impossible. The more I tried to avoid him, the more I noticed him. The more I told myself not to care, the more I did. I hated how much I liked him. Hated it, and yet needed it all at once. And then came the twist, sharp and sudden, like lightning tearing across a midnight sky. I hadn't even suspected it, couldn't have predicted it, and yet there it was, waiting to crash into my fragile equilibrium. I was walking past the little bookstore when I heard his voice. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, low, urgent, vibrating with a tension I had never heard in him before. I froze, straining to catch the words. She can't find out. Not yet, not until I fix this. My stomach dropped. I had no idea what he meant. My mind raced, imagining every possible scenario, each one darker than the last. A wall of secrecy had risen between us, tall and unyielding, and I didn't know how to scale it. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, to pull the truth out of him whether he wanted to give it or not. But fear held me back, a trembling knot in my chest. Later that evening, I found myself standing outside the diner, watching him through the rain-speckled glass. Steam curled from his coffee, his fingers tapped against the cup nervously, or maybe that was my imagination, but he seemed so distant, so occupied with something I couldn't see. I summoned every ounce of courage I had, pushed through the rain and the fear, and stepped inside. "Lucas," I said softly, my voice cracking just enough for him to notice. He turned, eyes flicking toward me, but there was a hesitation there I had never seen before. A shadow passed over his expression, brief but unmistakable, and I realized then that whatever secret he was carrying, it was heavier than I could have imagined. "I can't," he said suddenly, voice low and strained. "I can't do this." Those 3 words landed like stones in my chest. Shattered me. I had expected arguments, explanations, maybe even some cryptic reasoning, but not this raw, unyielding refusal. The depth of the pain in his voice was enough to make me tremble. "You don't understand," he continued, stepping back, creating distance between us that felt cruelly necessary. I'm trying to protect you. From everything I can't control. From the mess I've made. From me." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat making it nearly impossible to speak. I wanted to reach out, to tell him that I didn't care about the risks, that I didn't care about the mess. I wanted to tell him that I was here, that I was willing to fall anyway. But the words wouldn't come. All I could do was look at him, at the curve of his jaw, at the tension in his shoulders, at the vulnerability he never let anyone see, and feel the helpless, heart-wrenching truth that maybe he wasn't mine to save, wasn't mine to claim. I left that night. I ran through the wet streets, my shoes slapping against the puddle-speckled pavement, the neon glow of the diner fading behind me. The town felt impossibly large, impossibly empty, every corner and alleyway a reminder of the closeness I had lost before I had even truly had it. The smell of rain mixed with the faint scent of frying onions from the diner, the hum of electricity from the street lamps buzzing softly above, and every step echoed against the silence like a reminder that I had made a choice, one that was painful but necessary. And yet, even as I ran toward what I thought was safety, the truth hit me harder than I expected. Every familiar corner, every street I had imagined as refuge, every smell and sound, the bakery, the park, the cobblestones, even the worn-out benches along the riverwalk, reminded me of him. And I realized then, with a sharp, painful clarity, that I hadn't run to escape life at all. I hadn't run from heartbreak or noise or the mess I left behind. I had run straight into him. The realization was like a punch to the chest. I had come here seeking anonymity, seeking a pause, seeking the kind of quiet that heals. And yet, he had found me anyway. Without meaning to, without trying, he had become the center of every thought, every breath, every heartbeat. I had tried to shield myself, to keep my distance, to stay invisible, but it was impossible. He had already broken through every wall I had built, every rule I had made, every promise I had whispered to myself that this town was my refuge. My heart ached in ways I didn't fully understand. Longing, fear, jealousy, desire, they all mingled inside me, a storm I couldn't control. I hated him for it. Hated myself for it. Hated the way my chest tightened whenever I thought about his voice, his hands, the way his eyes seemed to see straight into me. But somewhere deep inside, even amidst the ache, there was a strange, undeniable thrill. Because for the first time in months, or maybe years, I felt alive. Completely alive. I realized then that this small town, with its quiet streets, its flickering street lamps, its scent of rain and grass, wasn't the escape I had imagined. It wasn't a safe haven. It was a place where I had to face something bigger, something more terrifying, something I had tried to outrun my entire life. I hadn't come here to heal, not really. I had come here to hide. And yet, in hiding, I had found him. And in finding him, I realized the truth: running away doesn't always protect you. Sometimes, it leads you straight into the very thing you're not ready for, but can't resist anyway. Weeks passed, and slowly, painfully, I learned to stand on my own again. I learned to breathe without waiting for him to appear in the doorway of my apartment or at the corner of the park, without expecting to feel his presence in the warm sunlight spilling across the streets. I learned to exist in this quiet town without the constant pull of him in my chest, without the ache that had made my nights restless and my days unbearable. It wasn't easy. Every little thing reminded me of him: the soft hum of cicadas in the evening, the scent of rain mixing with warm asphalt, the gentle flicker of street lamps as the night fell. Every sunset made me think of the curve of his jaw, the way the golden light had caught his hair the first time I saw him, like fire kissing every strand. Every warm breeze carried his name across my thoughts, teasing me, reminding me that the heart doesn't always follow the rules we set for it. I tried to move forward. I read in the little library, lost myself in stories of faraway lands and impossible romances. I walked the streets aimlessly, letting the town's familiar sights, cracked sidewalks, peeling paint on storefronts, the rusted iron gates along quiet alleyways, anchor me in something real, something mine. And yet, even as I reclaimed pieces of myself, part of me ached for him. That pull, that spark, hadn't gone anywhere. It had only grown quieter, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting. And then, one evening, the wait was over. I had walked to the edge of town, where the small road met the river, the water glittering gold in the late summer light. The town seemed to exhale around me, the gentle rustle of trees and the faint hum of distant traffic blending into a quiet symphony. I hadn't expected anyone, not him, not anything. I had finally convinced myself that I could be alone, and that maybe, for the first time in months, it was okay. But he found me. I tried, he said, voice low and raw, carrying the weight of all the nights we hadn't spoken, all the moments we had both denied. Tried to keep you safe by keeping my distance. But I can't do it anymore. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Words felt heavy and unnecessary. The space between us vanished as if it had never existed at all. Hands found each other instinctively, fingers curling together like they had been designed to fit, hearts finally allowed to admit truths we had both been denying. The world around us faded, the river, the golden water, the gentle rustle of leaves, the whispering breeze, all of it blurred into a soft, cinematic haze, leaving only him, leaving only us. I was scared, I confessed finally, voice trembling, almost breaking. Scared you'd leave me before I even knew you. He brushed a loose strand of hair from my face, his thumb lingering against my cheek. His eyes were soft but fierce, filled with a vulnerability he had never allowed me to see before. I was scared too, he admitted, voice breaking slightly under the weight of honesty. Scared of losing you, even before I had you. Scared of the risk, the mess, everything I couldn't control. And yet, in that moment, all the fears, all the distance, all the unspoken rules and walls we had built around ourselves crumbled. There was no pretending, no hiding, no running. Only us, standing together under the fading light of a summer evening, letting ourselves finally exist in the truth we had both been avoiding. The first touch was electric. The first hug was grounding. And as we held each other, letting our fears melt into something stronger, something permanent, I realized that the escape I had sought all this time hadn't been from life, or from chaos, or from heartbreak. No. The escape I had been searching for was from loneliness. From the constant ache of feeling invisible, unneeded, untethered. And in finding him, I had found home. I could feel it in the way his hands held mine, in the rhythm of his heartbeat against my chest, in the quiet sighs we shared as we leaned into each other, in the warmth of the summer evening wrapping us in a cocoon that no one could penetrate. There was safety here, yes, but also risk, vulnerability, and truth. And for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. Truly alive. I never want to run again, I whispered, burying my face against his chest, inhaling the scent of him, the faint trace of rain, and the warmth of sun-warmed air lingering on his jacket. Neither do I, he replied, voice low, almost reverent. Not from you. Not from us. Not ever again. And there, in the quiet embrace of a small town bathed in golden light, I finally understood something I hadn't allowed myself to believe before: some things are worth the fear. Some people are worth every risk. Some moments, fleeting and fragile as they may be, are worth everything you've been hiding from yourself. We stood there, hands entwined, hearts racing, the world around us slowly coming back into focus. The town was still quiet, still small, still predictable, but we had changed. Or maybe it was just me. I had changed. I had learned to take risks. To let myself be vulnerable. To let myself feel. And he had changed too, letting down the walls he had built, letting himself care in a way that scared him as much as it thrilled him. That night, the river shimmered like liquid gold beneath the first hints of evening stars. The streets, once ordinary and mundane, now seemed infused with possibility. Every rustle of leaves, every whisper of the wind, every faint glow of neon signs seemed to hum with the promise of what we had found. And I knew, as he held me close, as we stood together in that moment suspended between past heartbreaks and future uncertainties, that we were exactly where we were meant to be. And that's where I want to leave you today. In that perfect, fleeting, golden moment where two hearts finally let themselves fall, not away from the world, but into each other. Where fear transforms into courage, loneliness becomes home, and the smallest towns hold the largest stories. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think happened next? Could they stay together forever, or would life find a way to test them again? I want to know your thoughts, your feelings, every little detail you imagine. Drop a comment below and share your ideas with me. If this story pulled at your heartstrings, don't forget to like this video. It really helps me know you're enjoying these tales. Share it with someone who loves small-town romances as much as we do, someone who needs a little magic in their day. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next story. I promise you, the next tale is even more addictive, more emotional, and just as cinematic. Until next time, keep your heart open, keep believing in love even when it feels impossible, and remember, sometimes, running isn't about escaping life. Sometimes, it's about finding exactly what you've been looking for all along.